Every single time I'm about to make a video and I got someone over there cutting their grass. Never fails. Either way. Hey YouTube, remember me? I'm back. So got a great question. The question was, is it possible to train your dog too much? And the answer is yes. Think about it like this. Every cliche you've ever heard of laws of diminishing returns, too much of a good thing is a bad thing, they all ring true. But there's a couple of reasons and there's a couple of ways to look at why training your dog is too much or it can be too much on the dog. So to make this video a little quicker and a little easier to understand, I'm going to put all dogs into one basket. Not going to generalize puppies, not going to generalize adults. But I'm going to put them all encompassing so it covers all of them. So a couple ways to look at it is, are they getting trained too much because of physically, or are they getting trained too much mentally? Because both of them, just like humans, physically and mentally, you're putting your dog under stress. And just like people, when you're putting your body under stress, physically and mentally, physiologically, there's cortisol going up and your body needs time to repair and recover. Same with the dog. So mentally, for instance, if you are training your dog to focus, to do focus heels, focus on food, or anything like that, you're still putting your dog under a mental stress. If you're trying to train your dog to bite, run fast, send outs, things like that, yes, mentally they're still being stimulated because they're focusing on some external factor rather than you, but physically it's more, there's more exertion physically than mentally because you're looking at speed, you're looking at bite, things like that. So again, you've got to look at these from different angles. And with that, that means, yes, it is possible to train your dog too much. So, rule of thumb is generally a couple times a day for 5 minutes. Rule of thumb, but there's always an exception to every rule. So, with that, if you're looking at your dog who is going full throttle, look at Ava. She is going crazy in the backyard. She's been in the house all day. We did some stuff, and now she's just zooming around in the backyard. Physically, she is being stimulated. Mentally right now, not so much, just because she's doing a bunch of circles and doing a cuts, like she's trying out for the NFL. Here she goes. Mentally, there's not much going on. So, when you're looking at your dog, you got to think about what kind of stimulus are you providing to your dog. Usually across the spectrum, there is some kind of mental stimulus going on. Physically, there may be some adjustments here and there. So, a couple of times a day, 5 minutes is the rule, but there's always exceptions. So depending on your dog, you have to read your dog, which is what I always say, read your dog. Are their tongues hanging out? Are they panting? Or if you're living in Florida where it's hot out, are their bodies warm? Things like that. Are they slowing down at what you're trying to get them to do? Are they literally slowing down? Movement-wise, are they moving out slowly? Are they biting softer? Things like that are telltale signs of training too much. Not only that, you got to think about the mental part when you're putting them in the house. If you're putting them in the house and you did good in your training, you stopped short, only for a couple of minutes, awesome. But then you go into the house thinking they're just going to cool down. But rather than actually just putting them in their crate, that you got toys laying around and now you just, rather than zooming around, you tell them to just plots or lay down. But now they're doing that and they're doing it for an extended period of time. Not because they want to, but because you told them to, because really what they want is the toy. And yes, you're stimulating them mentally, but again, the cortisol that's going through them, that stress level is still on a higher end, it's not crashing back down. Remember, just like people, say you're lifting weights and things like that, cortisol goes up because, you're putting your body under duress, which is totally fine. You want that to, your body can actually get better and build off of that. but you want that cortisol to come back down so your body can recover and repair. Just like your dog, if they're just thinking, I have to plus because I want this toy right in front of me, they're still under duress. They actually haven't brought that cortisol level back down. So really, again, it's what is your intent with that plots? Is it just to have them sit and chill? Or is it to plots and chill because they have a toy in front of them? And really, that's why they're doing it, not because they actually want to and because they're tired. So think about it from different angles. Not only that, think about it like this. Even a freight train is going to run out of gas. A freight train can still break down and crash. Everyone's going to crash. Burnout is a real thing. Just like your dog, burnout is a real thing. So if you're going beyond that, rule of thumb of 5 minutes here and here, you got to start thinking, what is your training like? Is it more quality or is it more quantity? And I'm going to throw my shit out there again, like I always do, because I always tell you guys, let me make these mistakes and give them to you so you don't make the mistakes that I do. I want to keep pushing Ava. So outside of our 5 minutes here and here was also, hey, she knows I'm getting cube of ice. I'm going to make her work a couple of times. Hey, I'm going outside. I'm going to make her work a couple of times before she went outside. So I think I even made a video about like some of these little instances that you can do to just add on. But from what I remember on the video, it wasn't the actual training. It was actually just things you can do if you weren't training. So this way you can find ways to train without training. Some shit like that. I forget what it was. I forget what the question the person sent me. So my mind's a little bit foggy right now on that one, but it's something like that, something to that extent. If I could find it, I'll link it so you can have it. So if you're doing that, so you're doing your typical 5 minutes here and here, around dinner time. So again, because you always want your dog to be motivated by food or things like that, or even with a toy, depending on what you're focusing on, is if you're doing things in addition to that, you got to start thinking about the quantity versus the quality. And that's where I actually stopped doing that. And I actually only started, I think it was this week that I started only training again, going back to basics of training when it's dinner time or when it's breakfast time. Outside of that, I'm not really training them. So again, it's, they still have to have some minor obedience, like, before I open that back door, you got to sit, shit like that. But that's like minuscule. I'm talking about full on training where if it's like a focus heel or plots or front where, I'm talking about duration or speed, things like that, that actually will make an improvement on the dog's obedience or skill level. So think about that. Quality versus quantity. You can't have both. So if you're going for the quantity, and you guys start thinking about the quantity, but also the frequency and the length of the duration of which you're training your dog, all of that shit is going to have to come down. If you're thinking about quantity, frequency, and duration need to come down. You can't have all of those. Eventually, the dog's going to tap out. Eventually, it's going to be, if you got to start moving heaven and earth to get your dog motivated, even for food, even though you just, had snacks, and then you're trying to feed them dinner, and they're moving slow and they still don't want it, you got to start thinking, am I doing too much? Things like that do play a role. Hey, the dog used to be fast, they used to be moving, but now they're not moving. Why is that? Maybe they're just plateauing. And if they're plateauing, again, burnout could be setting in. They just need a hard reset. And that means you just got to have to stop training them for a while. Bring down the frequency maybe here and here a couple of times, but you got to do like almost a hard reset on them just to give them a break. So just way they can cool off physically and mentally. Because just like humans, if you're like lifting a lot, over time, eventually your body's just going to crash and then you need one of those deload periods. Same thing with your dog. Now, if you're thinking about just focusing on the quality, quantity you don't need. And that's where I would always invite you and suggest that you do is focus on the quality of your training. Meaning, be very precise, be very deliberate in what you are doing. Okay? Nitpick like a motherfucker. If they're doing something right, always reward. If they're doing something wrong, clean it up until you get the movement or look that you want or the behavior and what you're seeking. Okay, so and if that means bringing down some of the training volume, so to speak, put a little, again, weightlifter motto into it or ideology onto it, then do it. Because in this case, less will be more. Okay, so don't burn your dog out. You got to do enough to stimulate the dog, absolutely, because the follow-up to this video is, can you train your dog to less or not enough? So that'll be a separate conversation. The other one that I would want to just be on the safer side, err you on the safer side, is by training too much, you're putting your dog at a risk for injury, a higher risk for injury, because if they are already tired, they're already burnt out, and you keep pushing them, you keep, getting them on the leash so you can keep motivating and doing everything you can, the risk for injury is higher. Just like humans, just think about putting yourself in your shoes. If you go run 6 miles and then I ask you to do, fucking heavy squats or something, there's a chance that there's a higher risk of injury. So be smart with your dog, be intelligent, be deliberate, of course, but don't be stupid. And don't burn your dog out, because then they're not going to be motivated, and they're not going to be able to have that high level of focus. They're not going to bring that high quality level of training to you, and that's what you want. Okay? So is it possible to overdo it with your dog? Yes. So if you think you're overdoing it with your dog, you probably are, so bring it down. All right? So I'm going to go ahead and start the next video, so make sure you watch the follow-up. Is it possible to not train your dog enough? And obviously, with all many bad behaviors that you've seen with people and their dogs, of course the answer is yes, but you can find out a little bit more details over that on the next one. So if you haven't already, I'm going to go ahead and actually say this, because I've never said this before. If you like the video, go ahead and like it. Go ahead and subscribe, because eventually I would like to buy a Porsche or an Aston Martin, but right now I have none of those, and I just want to keep building this channel so I can quit my day job. All right, good luck. Talk to you next time. Done.